Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here. Well, a lot of you have been asking my opinion on what's going on with the observatory there in New Mexico. So I wanted to give my quick breakdown and also tell you that there's some interesting information that we can find in some foreign news articles that just might give us the answer to what's going on. Well, for starters, for those of you who don't know what happened, let me give you a quick breakdown. And that is this: the National Solar Observatory there in Sunspot, New Mexico was abruptly closed on Thursday, September the 6th, when FBI kind of swarmed into the area, taking over, if you will, and black helicopters were seen in the area, but they evacuated all the personnel, not only from the observatory, but also from the local post office, as if they didn't want any mail going out, kind of a big thing there, but they were all evacuated from both of those places. Even some of the local residents were evacuated. Now, the FBI were seen on the towers and some of the technical equipment there at the observatory, making changes or whatnot to the equipment, and thus far, it remains closed. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And now Aurora, A-U-R-A, who maintains the observatory, put out a statement on why it was closed. The only thing they basically said is that it was closed for security reasons and not giving anyone any other insight other than that. Thus, as a result, multiple conspiracies and information have risen. And I'm all for following through the conspiracies and finding out what the truth is on the matter. And I'm going to get through all of those. Here's the things that we need to keep in mind before I get into some of the theories on it. The first thing is this particular observatory is located near, two important areas. The first one being the White Sands Missile Range, and the second being the Holloman Air Force Base. These are two very important facilities where a lot of secret military things happen there. Stuff dealing with a nuclear bomb. They're notorious for dealing with that, as many of you know. Not only that, but there's high secrecy there. So we need to keep that in mind when we're thinking about this observatory that sits on top of the Sacramento mountains there, and you've kind of got that bird's eye view, and also you have your technical equipment there as a bird's eye view. So that's something that we need to know. The last thing, many of you may or may not have seen this, but a man went up there, and I'm forgetting the YouTuber, but his video is below. You can check it out. I encourage you to do so. He went up there and took his video camera to film the area, and it looked pretty much like a ghost town. Everybody, for the most part, evacuated in the area. He said he smelt some smells while he was there. The other thing is the day after he had left, suddenly they were blocking the way up there using guards. Here's a picture of them guarding that area, as you can see. But not only that, they have a Facebook page there, the observatory does, where they're posting updates. I'll toss that up. You can see that here. Now, they've also apologized for the closure on multiple occasions. All right, so let's get into some of the theories on that. The first thing that I want to start with is there were articles that were coming out that were saying it's not just the one in New Mexico, not only the solar observatory in New Mexico that was closed, but also 6 other observatories. Well, I did some research on that, and they weren't closed. The other observatories were not closed. It was webcams within them that were closed or turned off. And these included everything, and I'm just going to leave a link below, but included webcams from Sydney, Australia, to Chile, to Spain, to Pennsylvania, France, Hawaii, these particular areas. But the reason that I'm not really making any tie between those and the one in New Mexico is because the New Mexico one focuses specifically on the sun and what's going on with the sun. It's monitoring the sun. The others monitor other things, not just the sun. So there is no link between the closure of those webcams and the closure of what's happening in New Mexico. Now, if they were all pointed in the same direction, or if they all were monitoring the same thing, then my alarm bells would go up. But because that is not the case, I cannot make that link there. Maybe somebody's made a link outside of that, outside of what I'm saying, but thus far, I'm not seeing it. All right, So that said, let's get into some of the theories that exist. The first one is here is reportedly New Mexico Observatory caught an image on video that they didn't want anybody to see, some kind of something on the sun or image on the sun that they wanted to block out. That's why they were raided, because after all, it is by Sunspot, New Mexico is there by Roswell, New Mexico, the infamous Roswell. But they say maybe it caught something it wasn't supposed to on the camera. But it gives a little more detail on that, saying maybe it was a UFO, some kind of footage. But here's what we got to remember is the observatory was closed on September 6th. As of the 7th, 8th, 9th, and a couple days after, SDO was still up and running on NASA, right? So an image was pulled from SDO on September the 9th, a couple of days after the closure of the observatory. And on this, right after the closure of the observatory, a mysterious eclipse image, I'm going to throw that up on the screen, but you can see the eclipse image captured by SDO, and it shows one circle crossing the sun and then another circle crossing the sun. Now, why is that important? Well, many people say that's some kind of disc or UFO. They're different sizes and so on and so forth. But because there's such a perfect circle, I'm honestly, actually, and I don't always agree with NASA. I think NASA's actually got a good explanation for this because they actually put something up on it. But before I get to the NASA article, I want to show you this image. This was published by Maria G. Hill from Salem, Indiana on September 11th. Keep in mind the dates on that. The closure happened on the 6th. This is on the 11th. I believe in and around 11th, but after the 6th for sure. But she posted a photograph showing something near the sun that can only be described as some kind of disc-shaped UFO. Keep in mind, the SDO footage from NASA was taken on the 9th before or around this same time, if you will. But I honestly don't, she said she took it with some kind of camera on her phone. I don't know. I'm just not seeing a whole bunch of validity on that. But with NASA's explanation, if it was really something to be concerned about, they would have shut down SDO immediately, either before the New Mexico Observatory was closed or right after it, and that wasn't the case. It was still up and running. If they were trying to hide something, it would not just be a solo area. They would have also shut down SDO, which they didn't. But here's NASA's reason for this. You can see on nasa.gov September 10th, NASA's SDO spots 2 lunar transits in space. From SDO's perspective, it goes on, the moon appears to be going in one direction and then switch directions to cross the moon. Again, the moon does not, of course, actually change direction, but appears to do so from SDO's perspective based on the fact that the spacecraft's orbit essentially catches up and passes the moon during the first transit. So basically, it's talking about 2 lunar transits there. Now, I guess the ultimate decision on what that is up to you. Personally, I think it's exactly that, just that lunar transit, just my opinion. And that actually, it may or may not have been what, if any, image that was captured by the New Mexico Observatory. I believe it would have been different. But either way, SDO was still running up at that time. Now, another thing that came forward as a possible explanation is that it could have been some kind of solar flare and they were attempting to hide a solar flare. Check out this article. This is on September 11th. This was published. Space Weather Prediction Center, National Oceanic and Atmosphere Administration issues a G2, which is a fairly moderate warning for planet Earth, which is basically saying we have the possibility to get hit by a solar flare and it could cause some outages in the power lines and whatnot. So G2 is fairly moderate, not too concerned about a G2 warning, but many are saying, well, maybe it was a stronger warning. It could have been another Carrington style event. Well, if that were the case and they caught something on the camera on September the 6th. Well, here we are on the 16th. What is that? 10 days later now. And if it were something that they caught, it would have already hit the Earth by now. We would already be fried up to some point, and we would have had a mass power outage, because usually you've got that 10-day period before it strikes the Earth and something happens. So I have to say that I don't think it's any particular solar flare, because we would have already seen repercussions from that, and we're actually not seeing repercussions. Thus leads me to my final one, which I believe this is probably more of the possibility and what foreign articles are actually confirming. What am I talking about? Well, hacking. Because keep in mind, again, that observatory is located to two very secretive military, we have the military base, the whole Holloman Air Force Base, and then we have the other one, the Sands missile range, but both are very highly secretive. And could it be that either China or Russia or some news source hacked into that observatory in order to gain access to some of the information or to spy on some of the military branches? Now that makes a little sense to me, because again, if it were really some kind of G2 warning or something, other observatories would have shut down completely, and that's not the case. And other observatories faced at the sun would have shut down completely. This time only one observatory. So it's a single incident, which leads me either to A, they caught something locally in the area that shouldn't have been in the area, or B, there's some kind of activity, hacking and whatnot going on. Now, here's a foreign news article actually supporting that. This is from Sputnik News, which, as many of you know, is a Russian news source. And it's titled, "Watch, FBI Rapid Deployment Turns Sunspot Solar Observatory into a Ghost Town." Now, it goes on to state that according to Daily Express, the Sunspot Solar Observatory, part of the National Solar Observatory Network maintained by the Association of Universities for Research in Astronomy, was likely hacked by a foreign agent to monitor U.S. military activity in New Mexico. It goes on, in particular, UK-based media, after a theory that an intruder or agent affiliated with a foreign countries gained access to one of the observatory's antennas where a spy device was installed. So that's not the only source talking about the hacking of the facility there. There's also others, and I'll leave them in the description box below so you can check them out. But it's an easy Google. You guys can Google that and look into it. But again, I think this one holds a little more validity, considering it was just in a local area, considering that only one observatory that monitors the sun was closed and not multiple were closed, leads me more of it could have been a localized hacking, and the fact that probably some kind of foreign agent was spying on the local agencies. Now, that would also answer why they closed the post office. They don't want the information about the hack getting out because they want to deal with it or find all the information. Or it could have been someone at the observatory as an insider, maybe some sort of spy within the observatory who works for some foreign agency or some foreigner, whereas they were feeding information to China or Russia about our military installments and bases there. So that's just a take. I'd love to get what you guys think on that. What are your thoughts and concerns? But anyhow, I wanted to bring you the latest on all of that. I know not all of you are going to agree. Some might think it's UFO activity. Some might think it's still solar activity, but whatever the case may be, I'd love to get your intake, and I know not everyone agrees all the time. Anyhow, thanks again for tuning into my channel. If you like what you heard, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share it far and wide, and get it out to everyone, because that is the only way news here is, well, spread out. Well, thanks again for tuning in. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.